I read this, an author said, you can always ask 2 questions to help become more kind in your life. Are you ready? Great 2 questions. 1, what would I do if I was Jesus? In this situation, what would I do for these people if I was Jesus? And the second question is like that. What would I do if they were Jesus? There was a Romanian pastor named Richard Wurmbrand, and he was doing ministry behind the Iron Curtain before communism fell. And back in the 80s, he got arrested for being a pastor. And they threw him into a jail, and they tortured him on a regular basis. And on one day, they brought him out for torture, and they brought him back to his jail cell, and they threw him in there, and he said it was freezing cold. It was the middle of winter, there was no heat anywhere, and all he had in that jail cell was a single blanket. And so Richard went back in, bruised, hurting, shaking from the cold, and he wrapped himself in that blanket, and he held it as tight as possible to get whatever heat that his body could provide. And he said at that moment he looked over at his cellmate, sitting across the cell, and his cellmate didn't even have a blanket. He said in that moment, the thought blazed across his mind, and Pastor Richard said, I thought, what if he was Jesus? What would I do right now? And without a moment's thought, he got up and he took his blanket and he wrapped it around that man. And years later, Richard Wurmbrand wrote a book called Would You Give Your Blanket to Jesus? What would you do if you were Jesus, and what would you do if these other people were also Jesus? That's how he wants us to live. And I think that clarifies a whole lot of answers. We stop hemming and hawing. We stop holding back. We stop making excuses for our time and our effort and our attention and our care. And we start going, man, I should do something about that, even if it's a little something. If you go back through the Gospels, I know we kind of put a bookmark in Luke. We will get back to Luke in the new year. But as we go in through the Gospels, I want you to notice something. It's really interesting how many times Jesus is interrupted by other people.